There is a moment that many people only recognize after many years. Not when they're young, not when everything is going well, but usually after they pursued enough goals, gone through enough ups and downs, and achieved a few things they once believed would change their lives. That moment often arrives quietly. Nothing special happens. No major event marks it. It's just an ordinary day when they suddenly realize they've spent far too much time chasing something they never truly understood. That thing is happiness. From a young age, we're taught that it's the most important thing. Every effort is directed toward it. Studying to build a better future. Working to create a better life. Saving money to feel more secure. Trying to become a better version of ourselves. Behind all of these efforts lies a familiar assumption that someday everything will finally come together. And when it does, a sense of fulfillment will appear. But reality is often far more complicated. There are people who achieve what they once wanted and still feel that something is missing. There are people who possess far more than they once did, yet don't feel any more at peace. And there are people who look back on their journey and ask themselves, what was I working so hard for? That isn't a question of failure. It's a question that appears when someone begins looking at life differently. Because sometimes what exhausts us isn't difficulty itself. It's the belief that we always have to get somewhere before we're allowed to feel fulfilled. In this video, we're going to explore an idea that may completely change the way you think about happiness. An idea that sounds counterintuitive at first, yet is supported by a great deal of modern psychological research. What if happiness was never the final destination? And what would change if, instead of spending our lives chasing it, we began understanding what we're actually searching for? If you asked 100 people what they want most in life, many of their answers would eventually lead to the same place. They want to be happy. That sounds perfectly reasonable. In fact, very few people ever stop to question that idea, because it has become part of the way we see the world. We often view happiness as the ultimate destination of all our efforts. If we work hard, it's to become happier. If we build a good relationship, it's also to become happier. Even major goals like success, financial freedom, or personal growth are usually attached to the same expectation, that at the end of the road, we'll finally find the fulfillment we've been searching for. But there's a problem that rarely gets discussed. Happiness is an emotion, and emotions were never designed to last forever. No one can maintain the same emotional state for days, weeks, or months at a time. Even the most optimistic people get tired. Even the most positive people have days when they feel lost. So what happens when we turn a temporary emotional state into life's greatest goal? The answer is surprisingly simple. We begin treating every uncomfortable emotion as evidence that something is wrong. A sad day becomes a problem to solve. A period of low motivation makes us anxious. A stressful week convinces us that we're living the wrong way. But perhaps that's where we misunderstand the human experience. Life is not made only of pleasant emotions. It also includes disappointment, regret, worry, uncertainty, and periods of deep doubt. Those things are not flaws in the system. They are part of the system. And once we begin to understand that, the way we think about happiness starts to change. For many years, researchers tried to understand what truly creates a fulfilling life. At first, they believed the answer was increasing positive emotions. That seems logical. If we feel happier more often, wouldn't life naturally become better? But the deeper they looked, the more interesting the picture became. Some people who frequently experience happiness still describe their lives as empty. Meanwhile, there are people who face significant challenges, yet still feel that their lives have meaning. This led psychologists to an important distinction. There is a difference between feeling good and feeling fulfilled. Feeling good tends to come and go. It may appear after a great meal, an exciting vacation, or unexpected good news. But fulfillment is built differently. It emerges when a person feels that their life has direction. When they feel connected to something larger than temporary emotions. When they believe that what they do matters. That's why someone can be tired yet still feel fulfilled. Anxious yet still feel that life is worthwhile. or go through a difficult period without feeling that everything is meaningless. Modern research increasingly suggests that human beings need more than positive emotions. They need meaning. They need connection. They need a sense that their days are leading somewhere important. And this is where the title of this video begins to make more sense. Perhaps happiness was never the final goal. Perhaps it is only one part of a much larger picture. Think about the most important memories of your life. What comes to mind first? Was it the day you felt the happiest? Sometimes it may have been. But many of our most meaningful memories contain several emotions at once. It may have been the day you left a place you had been attached to for years. The day a loved one entered the operating room. The day you started a new job filled with uncertainty. Or the moment you made a life-changing decision. No one would call those experiences comfortable. Yet they often leave the deepest mark. Because what gives life meaning is not always comfort. Sometimes challenges are what help us grow. Sometimes difficult periods help us discover what truly matters. When people look back, many realize that the most important chapters of their lives were not the moments when everything was perfect. They were the moments when they learned something about themselves. And here's what's fascinating. If we focus only on feeling good all the time, we may unintentionally miss many of the experiences that make life deeper and more meaningful. If happiness is not the final answer, then what is it that keeps people moving forward? Many studies in psychology suggest that beneath most of the goals we pursue lies a deeper need. A person wants success not only because of money. A person wants more free time not only because of comfort. A person wants to build a happy family not simply because of positive emotions. Hidden beneath those desires is often a longing to connect, to belong, and to feel that life has meaning. That's why some people achieve a great deal and still feel lonely. Meanwhile, others possess very little that appears extraordinary and yet feel deeply at peace. Because what they are experiencing is not merely happiness. They feel that they are living a life that matters. Sometimes we spend too much time asking ourselves whether we're happy, when a more important question might be, am I living according to what truly matters to me? Those two questions sound similar, but they lead to very different ways of living. One causes us to constantly monitor our emotions. The other directs our attention toward the way we're living each day. And that difference changes everything. For decades, one of the most famous studies on happiness, conducted at Harvard University, followed the lives of hundreds of people over many years. As the research progressed, scientists discovered that the strongest predictor of a fulfilling life was not social status, not money, not achievements. The most significant factor was the quality of a person's relationships. People who maintained strong connections with family, friends, and their communities consistently reported greater satisfaction with their lives. That sounds simple, but in a world that constantly encourages us to achieve more, it is surprisingly easy to overlook. Many people spend years building a career but very little time building connection. They invest heavily in long-term goals while forgetting that brief conversations are often what remain in our memories the longest. At the end of life, very few people say that what made them most proud was answering more emails. But many remember the people they loved, the times they overcame hardships together, the moments that seemed ordinary at the time but later became priceless. Perhaps that is a reminder that a meaningful life is rarely built alone. There is an interesting paradox that psychologists often mention. People who pursue happiness directly sometimes end up feeling less happy. It sounds irrational, but imagine someone constantly asking themselves, am I happy? Am I enjoying this moment enough? Am I living the right way? Instead of immersing themselves in the experience, they begin standing outside of it and observing themselves. It's like someone entering a beautiful garden but spending all of their time measuring the height of every flower. In the end, they know a great deal about the garden, but they never truly enjoy it. Life can work the same way. The harder we try to grasp happiness, the more likely it is to slip through our fingers. Meanwhile, people who spend less time worrying about how they should feel often experience more joy. not because their lives are perfect, but because they devote most of their attention to living rather than constantly evaluating their experience. Then one day, you begin to understand that happiness is not a reward waiting at the end of the journey. It isn't standing behind the door of success. It isn't hidden inside a specific number. And it doesn't appear because life has finally become perfect. You realize that the most meaningful moments often occur when you are fully present. When you're sitting beside someone you love without being distracted by everything else you need to do. When you're so focused on work you genuinely enjoy that you lose track of time. When you feel grateful for something ordinary that you once took for granted. And that is when your perspective begins to change. You no longer see life as a problem that must be solved before you're allowed to feel fulfilled. You begin seeing it as a journey meant to be experienced. The joyful days are still worth appreciating. The difficult days still have lessons to teach. Nothing has to be perfect in order to be meaningful. Perhaps that is the day many people finally understand something important. Happiness was never the goal. It is simply a companion that appears along the road while we are busy living a meaningful life. Today we explored an idea that may change the way you think about life. We are often taught that happiness is the ultimate destination. But science and lived experience suggest something different. The people who feel the most fulfilled are not necessarily the ones who feel happy all the time. They are the people who find meaning in what they do, who maintain important relationships, and who devote time to the things that genuinely matter to them. Once you understand this, the pressure to always feel positive begins to fade. You no longer need to turn every day into a search for happiness. You simply need to become more present with the life that is already unfolding. Imagine yourself 1 month from now. The familiar responsibilities are still there. A few problems remain unresolved. Your external circumstances may not have changed very much, but the way you see them has. You no longer feel as though you must constantly race toward some future destination before you're allowed to feel satisfied. You begin paying closer attention to the things that have been there all along. A meaningful conversation, a quiet morning, a task completed with full concentration. And somehow, those seemingly small moments begin to make life feel far richer than before. If there was one idea in this video that made you think the most, share it in the comments. Your perspective might help someone who feels lost see things in a new way. And if you found this content helpful, save this video and come back to it whenever you feel like you're spending too much time rushing toward the future. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you in the next video.